I always liked taking pictures. And after I graduated, my parents got me my first DSLR, and people started asking if I would do photos for them. And then when I realized how long it took me to edit photos and even the cost involved, the more I took pictures, the more I wanted better equipment. And I started charging a little bit. And then at some point I realized I was putting in 40 hours a week plus. Because I didn't study photography, I feel like a big hurdle was just recognizing at some point I have the skill set and now I have the experience, and it's time to consider myself a photographer, charge like a photographer. So it just gradually went from being a hobby, a side job, to my full-time work. Typically, the inquiries come through social media, and I try to respond promptly. I usually send them a little bit telling them about myself, of course, giving them some information about my packages, the options that I have, as well as ask them some questions about what they're looking for in a photographer and for their session, for their wedding, whatever it is that they're looking to have photographed. If it's a bride and groom and they live locally, then I like to be able to go out for coffee, chat, even to see if mutually we're a good fit. Sometimes you're not the best photographer for them. Then up until the session, there's usually a little bit of planning, touching base, trying to figure out what kind of location they want, or talking about the wedding, like their style. Then as far as the job itself, obviously I shoot it, and then try to do an initial sort through culling the images myself. And then actually, about a year ago, I realized I had too much work for being a mother of two at the time. And I started outsourcing my editing. And so I do an initial cull through the images, and then I send them off to be culled further and then edited according to my style. They send them back. I tweak them a little bit more and then deliver through an online gallery. I like people, so I love working with new clients. So that makes the sessions extra fun. Of course, I enjoy taking photos. I like the post-processing work as well, but I think working with people is my favorite part of it. Part of the process, I think, is getting to know the client, getting to know what they like, what they want. I tend to like things to be a little bit less posed and more photojournalistic, but I do try to take into consideration the person, their style, how comfortable they are in front of a camera, and that all comes into play as far as like how that session runs its course. There's not a lot, from the past that you can bring with you that preserves a certain period of time in your life. And so I've always loved photos because of that. And so for my sessions, for weddings especially, I prefer to stay behind the scenes if possible, do minimal group photos if possible, and instead capture those moments as they happen. So for a wedding, I love getting candids of the guests during the reception, enjoying their conversations, the bride and groom actually talking to the guests, talking to each other, versus spending as much time posing them, bringing tons of props, which can be pretty. I mean, that has a nice result as well. But I personally like having those real moments, the real laughs, the real conversations captured instead. And so for sessions, portrait sessions, just to try to have people, interact with each other. If it's a family, y'all take a walk, y'all talk to each other. And then usually throughout the session, they grow more comfortable in front of the camera, and you can actually catch some of those real moments